Welcome, dreamers of the cosmos. Tonight's tale is title chosen for the Celestial Groom by mistaken DNA. Scanny filed a complaint. She kissed him anyway. If you love drifting into strange galaxies, mysterious romances, and cinematic sci-fi adventures, make sure to watch till the very end. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps this channel bring more interstellar stories to life. It began on a quiet evening, the kind that felt almost suspended in amber. The city of Oriolis shimmered beneath, a dome of atmospheric glass, its towers leaning like silver reeds against the pale glow of 3 moons. Most of its citizens were winding down, drifting toward sleep or sliding into the dream shares that lulled them through the long nights. But in a corner of the district where neon signs still hummed and hover trams whispered on mag lines, a man named Rensolin was waiting for his coffee to cool. He wasn't expecting his life to change that night. He certainly wasn't expecting to be chosen as someone's groom. Ren was a systems analyst, the sort of person who noticed when an equation stuttered or a circuit hummed half a pitch too high. He carried himself with the slouch of someone who spent too much time inside his own head, analyzing the cracks in code rather than the stars outside. That evening, after a long day of error reports and half-broken databases, he had stopped by the DNA Vitality kiosk that sat just outside the cafe, a booth the size of a closet, lined with pale blue light. People use them all the time. Scan your genome, receive your health report, maybe a diet suggestion, maybe a discount on supplements. Harmless, mundane. Ren stepped inside without much thought, inserted his thumb into the scanner, and let the device hum over him like a swarm of invisible bees. He wasn't there for romance. He wasn't even curious. He only wanted the free wellness coupon it offered with every scan. The machine blinked, and blinked again. Then its screen filled with words he'd never seen before. Congratulations. You have been selected. Celestial matrimony contract initiated. Ren frowned, tapping the display. What? No, I just wanted. The booth's light turned gold, surrounding him in a shimmering lattice. A seal like a starflower unfurled across the screen, its petals spinning as though alive. Then came the voice, soft, harmonic, yet firm in its decree. By decree of the Celestial Accord, Rensolin, you have been identified as the fated groom of Lady Alarave. Ren blinked hard. Excuse me, groom? No. There's been a mistake. I don't even Lady who. But the kiosk didn't care. It was no longer an ordinary wellness scanner. Its panel shifted, showing him documents encoded in starlight, legal seals spinning in orbit around his name. Each carried the weight of interstellar law. He staggered back, but the door behind him had locked shut. The scanner bathed him in warmth, as though binding him in invisible silk threads. He could feel it not on his skin, but deeper, resonating through his chest. A bond, a claim, a chain. The voice continued, your DNA sequence has aligned at 99.997% compatibility with the Vey heirloom signal. Cosmic union is both lawful and inevitable. Ren let out a strangled laugh. Inevitable? I file error reports for a living. I haven't been on a date in 6 months. There's no way I'm anyone's. He searched for the word, panicking. Celestial Groom. The machine ignored him. A final sequence of glyphs etched itself across the screen, then dissolved into a star map. And then, as suddenly as it had begun, the door hissed open. Ren stumbled out into the night air, clutching the little printout it had spat into his hands. The paper shimmered faintly, as though woven from threads of light. Across its surface were coordinates, signatures, and a name that pulsed faintly as though alive, Lady Alarave. On the far side of the city, half a world away in truth, though, distance meant little when summons came by. The Accord. Alarave was already awake. She stood on the balcony of her family's orbital estate, her gown rippling in the artificial breeze, her eyes fixed on the stars beyond the dome. She had been told long ago that her match would be chosen not by hand or heart, but by destiny woven into strands of DNA. The Vey family had upheld this tradition for centuries. Noble houses bound through celestial scans, alliances sealed by blood itself. Yet when the notice arrived, her groom identified, summoned, named, she had frowned. The profile had no noble crest, no long ancestral record, only a thin thread of data from a common scanner in a city kiosk. Her first words had been sharp. That cannot be correct. But the Accord did not make mistakes. They insisted. The bond was already sealed. A man named Rensolin had been chosen, and by dawn, he would be brought before her. Back in the city, Ren paced his apartment in disbelief. The glowing document still pulsed on his table, stubborn as a heartbeat. He had tried tearing it, burning it, even tossing it into a bucket of water, but it reformed itself. Crawling back onto his desk like a loyal animal, he collapsed into his chair, rubbing his temples. This is ridiculous. Tomorrow, I'll just go back, file a complaint, tell them it was a misscan. Right. But deep inside, he wasn't so sure. His chest still thrummed faintly. A resonance he couldn't shake. It was as though a piece of him had been pulled out and tethered to something or someone far away. And despite every logical protest, part of him wondered who she was. This Lady Alarave. Was she even real? Was she looking at the same stars? He shook himself. No curiosity. No interest. Just bureaucracy. I'll sort it out. Yet as he said it, his window shivered. Outside, the sky rippled with sudden light. A ship was descending through the dome, sleek, silent, its hull reflecting the city lights like a blade. It was coming for him. Ren's pulse quickened. His breath caught. He hadn't even had time to draft his complaint. The craft hovered above his building, its belly glowing. A beam of silver light swept across his window, filling his apartment with brilliance. And then, as though answering the bond in his blood, a voice echoed in his mind, not from the ship, not from the city, but from somewhere impossibly close. Rensolin, groom of the Accord, come. The silver beam lifted Ren before he had time to resist. One moment he was in his apartment, shouting that he had rights, and the next he was drifting upward, limbs weightless, pulled through the trembling glass of his window as if it were made of water. The city blurred beneath him, towers folded into a lattice of light, streets bent like glowing veins. And then everything dissolved into the belly of the ship, darkness, then a hum, then weightlessness. Ren floated in the center of a spherical chamber, his breath fogging in the cool air. The walls were transparent. He could see the city shrinking below, domes like beads on the velvet of night. He twisted in the air, clutching at nothing. His voice cracked as he shouted, I file a complaint. I'm not doing this. Something answered, but not with words. Panels slid open in the chamber walls, releasing scrolls of glowing paper that unfurled around him. They drifted in zero gravity, sheets of starlight, each covered in tiny glyphs and signatures. Bureaucracy given physical form. The ship itself was a flying archive. A calm, measured voice filled the chamber. Celestial matrimony contract. Preliminary review. Groom must acknowledge receipt by affixing by mark. Ren flailed, batting the glowing scrolls away. No by a mark. No marriage. No whatever this is. One of the papers adhered stubbornly to his palm, wrapping around his wrist like silk. He yanked, but it pulsed in rhythm with his heartbeat. A signature in light etched itself on the surface, his name, Rensolin, scrawled as though he'd written it himself. Hey, he barked, that doesn't count. That's forgery. The voice did not respond. More scrolls drifted closer, some curling lazily, others snapping open like impatient wings. His body turned slowly in the zero gravity, a man caught in a blizzard of paperwork. Then, without warning, the chamber's walls parted. Ren was pulled into a corner where gravity suddenly reasserted itself, dropping him unceremoniously onto a polished floor. He groaned, brushing glowing glyph dust off his sleeves, and looked around. The corridor resembled a courthouse crossed with a cathedral. Arches of crystalline alloy soared above him. Benches of obsidian glass lined the walls, empty now, but waiting as though for a trial. The air smelled faintly of ozone and ink. A figure appeared at the end of the hall, tall, robed, with a face obscured by a lattice mask. Its voice echoed like many voices at once. Rensolin, you have been summoned under Article 42 of the Accord. You are to be delivered to Lady Alarave for introduction. confirmation, and binding. Do you understand? Ren raised a trembling hand. Actually, I'd like to not understand and instead of formally file a complaint. The masked figure tilted its head. A complaint, yes, but bureaucratic complaint. Wrong person, wrong scan, wrong. Destiny, I demand forms. Triplicate, preferably, a silence stretched. Then, to Ren's astonishment, the figure nodded. Very well, the Accord recognizes the right of protest. Please follow me. He was led into another chamber, this one much smaller. It resembled an office, though its walls shifted gently like the inside of a living organism. A desk hovered in midair, covered in stacks of glowing tablets. Behind it sat a clerk, a creature with 6 delicate arms, each holding a stylus, all scribbling at once. Its eyes glowed amber with perpetual boredom. The clerk didn't look up as it spoke. Name, Rensolin. Complaint type, a mistaken identity. Wrong groom. Cosmic error. All 6 arms paused. The clerk's eyes flicked up, unimpressed. That's rare, Ren repeated, exasperated. So it has happened? The clerk shrugged an odd ripple of shoulders. Rare, but not unheard of. The Accord makes very few mistakes. 99.9% accuracy. Ren crossed his arms. I'm obviously the point one. The clerk tapped the tablet, producing a glowing scroll that floated toward him. Fill this out, Ren groaned but began scanning the form. Line after line asked absurd questions. Have you engaged in cosmic union rituals? Within the last century? Do you consent to voiding ancestral entanglements? Rate your satisfaction with the summons beam, from 1 to 5 stars. He scribbled nonsense answers, muttering the entire time. 1 star, 0 stars, negative stars. I'm not marrying anyone, especially not someone I've never met. As he reached the final line, reason for protest, he paused. His pen hovered. How did one distill sheer absurdity into a single reason? He finally scrawled, because this is ridiculous. The scroll sealed itself with a sigh, as though disappointed in him, then drifted into the clerk's many hands. The creature stamped it with a glowing seal and muttered, filed. A hearing will be scheduled within the next cycle. Ren blinked. A cycle? As in, a day? A lunar cycle, the clerk corrected. 29 days. Ren nearly collapsed. 29 days. I'm supposed to what? Sit around on this bureaucratic mothership until then? The clerk finally looked amused. No, you will be escorted to Lady Alarave. Custom demands the couple meet before any hearing. Consider it. Preliminary evidence, Ren groaned. Perfect. Just perfect. Meet the woman who thinks I'm her destiny, right before I tried to tell her she's wrong. Great strategy. He was escorted back through twisting halls, the hum of the ship pressing against his ears like the thrum of a giant heart. Eventually, he was led to a chamber unlike any he had seen before. Its walls opened to the void, revealing stars spread like spilled diamonds. In the center floated a dais, and above it, a translucent dome of air shimmered faintly. This is the observation deck, his escort intoned. Lady Alara will meet you here. Ren stepped hesitantly onto the dais, staring at the stars, his complaint scroll still glowing faintly in his pocket. He had wanted bureaucracy. He had wanted forms. But now, faced with the emptiness of space and the promise of meeting someone whose name already thrummed in his chest, he felt his breath shorten. He told himself he was ready to argue, to insist this was all a mistake, to prove it, no matter how much starlight said otherwise. But as the far doors opened, and a figure stepped gracefully onto the deck, Ren's words froze in his throat, because Lady Alarave was nothing like he'd imagined. The woman who entered the observation deck moved as if the gravity belonged to her. Her gown shimmered like woven nebulae, each fold rippling with the faint pulse of constellations. Her hair was a cascade of obsidian streaked with silver threads, as though night itself had taken shape around her. Yet it was her eyes calm, piercing, ocean deep that rested Ren's breath. Lady Alarave did not look at him as a stranger. She looked at him as though she had been expecting him all her life. Rensolin, she said, her voice carrying the stillness of distant stars. The Accord has delivered you. Ren cleared his throat, fighting the inexplicable tightening in his chest. Yes, well about that. I think there's been a clerical error. He pulled the glowing scroll from his pocket and waved it like a shield. See? Filed a complaint. Official and everything. Alara's lips curved half amusement, half pity. You filed. Paperwork against fate. It's not fate, Rin snapped. It's a machine. A scanner in a cafe kiosk. I only wanted a coupon. And next thing I know, boom, I'm abducted, force signed. And apparently engaged to space nobility. I didn't sign up for this. Literally, for a moment, silence stretched between them. The stars beyond the glass dome spun slowly, timeless witnesses. Then Alara tilted her head. Do you feel it? She asked softly. Feel what? The resonance, the bond. Every chosen pair can sense it. It hums in the blood. A thread pulling across the void. Rin stiffened. Because yes, he had felt it. That subtle, thrumming pulse since the scan. As though someone had plucked a cord inside his chest, and it still vibrated. And standing before Alara now, it grew stronger, rising like an invisible tide. He forced a laugh. That's called adrenaline. Panic? Maybe indigestion. But her eyes narrowed, catching the lie. The chamber shifted subtly around them, as though the ship itself bent to their presence. Stars flickered. Somewhere, deep within, a chime rang acknowledging that the meeting had been logged. Alara stepped closer, her gown whispering against the deck. You think you were chosen by mistake, she said, her tone measured. But the Accord does not misalign DNA lightly. Matches are rare, sacred, binding. Rin lifted his chin stubbornly. Sacred or not, I'm not signing my life away because of a scanner glitch. I want an appeal, a reversal, or whatever your cosmic annulment looks like. That faint smile flickered again. You truly filed a complaint, yes, and I'll win. Because I don't belong here. I'm nobody. I'm not. He gestured at her gowns, her regal bearing, the sheer weight of her presence. This, for the first time, Alara's composure faltered. A shadow passed across her face. She turned toward the stars, her voice low. You think I chose this? Rin blinked. My family swore to the Accord generations ago, she continued. We are bound by its decrees. It matters little what I desire. The DNA decides. It is law. It is destiny. Her eyes glinted as she faced him again. And now, it has chosen you. The weight of her words pressed against him, heavier than the stars beyond. Rin wanted to protest again, to declare the absurdity of it all. Yet there was something in her gaze, a flicker of loneliness, of quiet resignation that made the argument catch in his throat before he could answer. The masked official from earlier entered, robes swaying like pendulums. The meeting is recorded. Groom has acknowledged presence. Bond resonance confirmed at 99.99%. Hold on. Rin barked. I didn't acknowledge anything. And I filed a complaint. A real one. The official's head turned slowly. Complaint logged. Hearing scheduled at dawn. Both parties must attend. Alara inclined her head, regal even in the face of bureaucracy. We will be there. Rin threw up his hands. Great. Fantastic. Can't wait to explain to some cosmic judge that I'm the wrong guy. The official raised a gloved hand. A symbol of light appeared in the air, spinning like a gavel. Until then, you remain bound. Rin felt the pulse in his chest tighten, pulling faintly toward Alara, as though invisible threads stitched them together. He staggered, clutching his shirt. Hey, don't do that. But the official had already turned away, vanishing into the ship's dark arteries. Alara regarded him in silence. The stars reflected in her eyes, but behind them lay something softer. She stepped closer, her voice quieter now. You truly don't want this? I truly don't want this, Rin muttered. Yet his heart betrayed him, hammering harder the nearer she came. The bond throbbed like a drumbeat in his blood, undeniable. He told himself it was forced, artificial, nothing real. But when she was standing close enough that he could see the faint shimmer of starlight along her skin, his breath caught all the same. Alara studied him, her gaze unreadable. Then tomorrow, at dawn, make your case. If you succeed, the bond will be dissolved. You will return to your life. And I will. She hesitated. I will remain. Something about the way she said it tugged at him. A crack in her otherwise unbreakable armor. He wanted to ask what remain meant. What loneliness awaited her if the bond was severed? But he stopped himself. This wasn't his problem. He had filed his complaint. He was leaving. Still, the question lodged in his throat, unanswered. As he was escorted back to the chamber prepared for him, hours passed like a dream half-lived. Ren lay on a bed that shifted to cradle his weight, staring at a ceiling alive with drifting constellations. Sleep came in waves, shallow and uneasy. Whenever his eyes closed, he felt it, the pull, the hum, the thread connecting him to Alara. When the ship's chime finally rang to signal dawn, he was already awake. To escorts arrived, leading him down polished halls toward the hearing chamber. The doors loomed, carved with symbols of balance and binding. Inside, light spilled like liquid gold. A circular platform hovered in the center, surrounded by tiers of masked officials. Their robes rippled like waves of law itself, and at the far side of the chamber, waiting in silence, stood Lady Alara Vey. Ren swallowed hard, complaint scroll clutched in his trembling hand. This was it, his one chance to prove he didn't belong. But as the chamber doors closed behind him, and the gavel of light shimmered in the air, he felt the resonant surge so powerfully it nearly brought him to his knees. The bond wanted to be heard. The hearing chamber shimmered like a cathedral carved out of light. Dozens of masked officials sat in concentric tiers, their robes rustling faintly, though no breeze moved the air. Above them, a massive window stretched into infinity, letting the stars serve as silent witnesses. Ren felt small beneath that gaze, small, stubborn, and utterly out of his depth. He clutched his glowing complaint scroll like a drowning man clings to driftwood. Across the chamber, Lady Alara Vey stood serene, her gown whispering softly as she inclined her head to the council. The presiding arbiter raised a hand. A gavel of light spun above the platform. Proceedings begin. Matter, Celestial Bond, contested. Parties, Lady Alara Vey, heir of House Vey, groom designate, Ren Solon. A low murmur rippled through the chamber at the name Solon. No noble house. No crest, just a man from nowhere. Ren cleared his throat, forcing his voice steady. Yes, thank you, esteemed council. I'd like to begin by stating, clearly and firmly, that there's been a mistake. I was scanned at a public kiosk. Not a sacred altar, not a noble vault. Just a wellness booth next to a cafe. Laughter muted, but real passed among the officials. Ren flushed. I didn't consent. He pressed. I didn't seek this. I am not a groom. I am a systems analyst who wanted a discount coupon. And he raised his scroll high, filed the appropriate paperwork to prove it. The arbiter's mask tilted. Your complaint is acknowledged, but evidence must be weighed. The accord does not bind without resonance. Does the groom deny feeling the bond? Ren opened his mouth to say yes. The word stuck in his throat, because even now, standing here, he felt it a hum deep in his bones. A pull toward Alara, impossible to deny. His heart betrayed him, thudding faster as his gaze flicked to her. He muttered, I deny its validity. Alara's lips curved faintly, though her eyes remained unreadable. Convenient phrasing. The arbiter gestured. A beam of light fell between them, forming a circle. Per accord tradition, before judgment, the couple must undergo the observation interview. Questions will be asked. Resonance tested. Truth revealed. Ren paled. Interview? No one said anything about, but the circle was already pulling them inward, lifting them onto the days where gravity felt lighter, dreamlike. Stars surrounded them, their light close enough to touch. Alara stood across from him, calm as a planet in orbit. Ren tried not to fidget. The arbiter's voice rang clear. Lady Alara, groom Ren Solon, you will answer. First question, describe your first memory of one another. Ren blinked. We've just met. But before he could say more, a strange warmth welled up in his mind. Images flickered. Alara standing on her balcony, staring at the stars. A breeze carrying her scent of silver blossoms. The loneliness etched in her gaze. His breath caught. Those weren't his memories. They were hers. Alara's voice was soft, reverent. I saw him through the Accord's call. His eyes startled, defiant, alive. My first memory is of him refusing destiny itself. Ren stammered. No. My first memory is being kidnapped by a scanner. Yet even as he said it, another vision leaked through, himself in the booth, bewildered, but with something deeper, a spark of recognition. As though a thread had tugged him even then, he shook his head violently. That's not real. That's interference. Data corruption. The officials whispered among themselves. The resonance was undeniable. The second question came. What do you fear most about this bond? Rin blurted, losing myself. Being swallowed by someone else's destiny. Alara's gaze softened, just slightly. Being abandoned, she said. The chamber grew still. Rin looked at her, startled. He hadn't expected honesty from someone so composed, so regal. But there it was, raw and fragile, spoken into the void. And, disturbingly, the bond pulsed between them, as though recognizing the truths laid bare. The third and final question. If the bond is dissolved, what will you choose instead? Rin steadied himself. I'll go home, back to my job, my apartment, my normal life, simple. Mine. His voice rang too loudly, brittle with forced certainty. Alara's answer was quieter. I will wait, as I always have. Something in her tone struck deeper than he wanted to admit. That weight of centuries of tradition pressing on her. The loneliness in her eyes last night. It made his complaint scroll feel suddenly flimsy, like a child's protest scrawled in crayon. The arbiter's gavel spun, glowing hotter. Resonance confirmed at full strength. Evidence of mutual recognition noted. Hearing adjourned until final review. The circle dissolved, dropping them gently back to the floor. Rin's knees felt weak. He wanted to argue, to shout, but his throat locked. Alara turned to him as the officials dispersed. The chamber dimmed, leaving only the stars. You fight it, she said quietly. But the bond will not let you go. Rin scowled. I'll fight harder. She stepped closer, the faintest smile playing at her lips. Then fight me directly, not the paperwork. Meet me again on the observation deck tonight. No council, no laws. Just us. His breath hitched. Why? Because if you truly believe this bond is a mistake, she murmured, her eyes steady on his, then look me in the eyes without feeling it. Prove it. The stars shimmered like a dare between them. The observation deck was silent except for the low hum of the ship's heart. Rin stood near the dome's edge, staring into a sea of stars that felt both infinite and suffocating. His complaint scroll sat in his pocket, glowing faintly like an ember of stubbornness. He told himself he was here to prove Alara wrong, to prove himself right, that the bond was artificial, a misfire of data, that whatever he felt was nothing but cosmic static. Yet when the doors sighed open and Lady Alara Vey entered, he felt the hum in his chest rise like a tide. Her gown tonight was simpler, pale silver that flowed like moonlight, her hair loose around her shoulders. Without her formal regalia, she looked less like an heir of a galactic house and more like a woman walking into a quiet. Confession, you came, she said softly, or unfolded his arms. I said I would. Not everyone does, she replied, stepping closer. Maybe they didn't file complaints. The faintest smile touched her lips. Perhaps not. They stood together under the dome, silence pressing around them. Finally, Alara lifted her gaze to the stars. Do you know why the accord binds through DNA? She asked. Because it's invasive and controlling. Rin shot back. Her eyes glimmered with patience. Because memory is stored not just in minds, but in blood. Every generation carries echoes of those before. When a bond is formed, the memories surface. 2 lives, becoming more than they were. Rin frowned. Memories? What kind of memories? Fragments, she said. Whispers. Glimpses. Dreams not your own. Rin stiffened. Because already, in restless snatches of sleep, he had seen things. Not his life, not his memories, but hers, a lonely child standing on the balcony of an orbital palace, watching the galaxy spin. A young woman learning to smile with perfect grace while her heart remained untouched. He shoved the thought aside. So what? I don't want your memories. I don't want, but his voice faltered, because in that moment another fragment stirred, laughter, bright and unguarded, echoing down a corridor of crystal. It was his. A memory he didn't remember living. He swayed, clutching the rail. What was that? Alara's eyes softened. An overlap. The bond is opening. Rin turned sharply, anger covering the crack in his composure. This is exactly why I filed a complaint. This isn't choice, it's programming. It's rewriting me or revealing you, she countered. No. He shook his head. It's theft. My life, my freedom taken. Alara studied him, the patience in her gaze giving way to something more fragile. Do you think I wanted this? To be bound to someone who despises the bond. To bear myself to a man who sees me as a prison. Her words struck harder than he expected. He had assumed she wanted this, needed it. But now, he saw the fracture in her armor. Alara, he began, then stopped. The silence between them was heavy, full of stars dotted last. She stepped closer, so close he could see the faint shimmer of constellations reflected in her eyes. Say it, Rinsolin. Look at me and tell me you feel nothing. That the bond is a lie. That you could walk away. Rin's throat tightened. He wanted to say it. He needed to say it. But as he opened his mouth, another fragment surged stronger this time. He saw himself standing beside her on a balcony, centuries in the past or centuries ahead. He couldn't tell. Their hands were entwined. Her laughter was in his ear. A promise whispered, "We will find each other, no matter how many stars separate us." His knees buckled. He gasped, gripping the railing. What was that? Alara's voice trembled for the first time. A memory not yet lived. The bond sometimes shows futures as well as pasts. Rin staggered back. No, that's not real. That's manipulation. But even as he said it, his heart hammered with the echo of that promise. The weight of it pressed against him, undeniable. Alara reached for him, hesitated, then let her hand fall. You can still choose to walk away, Rin. File your complaint. Break the bond. The council will dissolve it if you insist. He looked at her, really looked. Not the regal air, not the woman wrapped in tradition, but the person standing before him, quietly daring him to see her. His chest ached with the pull of the bond, the fragments of memory. The possibility that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a mistake. Rin's voice was hoarse. And if I don't? Her eyes met his. For once, they were not guarded, not regal, not resigned. Just honest. Then perhaps you will remember what it means to be chosen not by law, but by the stars themselves. The ship shuddered suddenly, breaking the fragile stillness. The dome rippled, alarms whispering faintly through the deck. Rin jerked upright, startled. Alara's expression darkened. We're not alone. Through the dome, shadows moved against the star-sleek ships, sharp and silent, gliding toward them. Their hulls bore no crest, no cord seal, only black glass and predatory lines. Rin's blood went cold. Who are they? Alara's eyes narrowed. Those who would see the accord undone. The stars themselves seemed to tremble as the intruders drew closer. The bond in Rin's chest flared painfully, as if warning him. Destiny was accelerating. Whether he wanted it or not, the intruder ships moved like sharks through starlight. Their hulls shimmered black, bending gravity around their edges. No accord crests, no registration signatures, only silence and intent. The observation deck's alarms deep into a low, urgent hum. Rin felt the resonance in his chest spike, a taut string pulled toward panic. He clutched the rail. I thought this was some kind of courthouse ship. Why would anyone attack a floating library of paperwork? Alara's expression hardened. Because it is more than that. Every bond sealed aboard this vessel strengthens the accord. To unbind the future, they must sever the unions. So they blow up weddings? Not weddings, she corrected quietly. Destinies? The word lingered. Heavy. The deck vibrated as defense barriers unfolded. Shimmering fields of light knitting across the dome. Still, the black ships pressed closer, their weapons humming with the eerie glow of Wojtek. Rin's pulse raced. He wanted to hide, to protest, to remind them all that he shouldn't even be here. Instead, the bond surged again, dragging him toward Alara as if instinct itself tethered them. He found himself moving closer without realizing, their shoulders brushing as the ship braced for impact. Alara's voice was calm, but her fingers tightened around the rail. The council will retreat to arbitration vaults. But we, her eyes flicked to him, sharp as a blade. We are the target, Rin gawked. Target, I filed a complaint. Don't they read the paperwork? I'm not part of this. Her gaze softened just slightly. The bond doesn't care about your paperwork, Rin. And neither do they. The first strike hit. A shockwave rippled through the dome, making the stars quiver. Rin stumbled, caught himself only to feel Alara's hand steady him. Her touch sent the resonance thrumming like a living flame. For a moment, everything else faded. The alarms, the warships, even the fear. Just her hand, warm and certain, anchoring him. He whispered, almost against his will. Why does it feel like we've done this before? Alara's eyes searched his. Because perhaps we have. In another life, or one yet to come. The deck shuddered again, jolting them closer. Rin tried to laugh. But it came out broken. Great, cosmic déjà vu. Just what I needed. The officials' voices crackled through the comms. Order and countermeasures and legal invocations of sovereignty. None of it mattered. The black ships weren't negotiating. They fired again, breaching the outer defenses. Sparks rained from the ceiling. The dome flickered, threatening to collapse. The void loomed close. Rin turned to Alara, panic in his eyes. If they board, what happens? Her reply was steady, but her voice trembled beneath the steel. They will tear the bond from us. They use machines that unweave what the Accord has bound. The process destroys both. Rin's blood froze. Both, as in you and me? She nodded once. The resonance flared so fiercely it almost doubled him over. For the first time, Rin wasn't sure if it was fear or the bond itself that made his heart thunder. The floor tilted as another blast struck. Rin fell forward, catching himself on the rail beside her. Their faces were suddenly inches apart, breath mingling in the haze of ozone. Alara's voice was low, urgent, threaded with something that felt dangerously close to longing. If this is the end, do not let it be wasted in protest. Rin swallowed hard. His mind screamed, this is insane. This is a mistake. I filed a complaint. But the bond in his chest surged louder, drowning everything else in its rhythm. Before he could think better, before he could stop himself, he leaned in. Their lips met. The kiss was not gentle. It was electric, a collision of inevitability and defiance. Stars seemed to burst behind his eyes, fragments of memory flooding him. Laughter on a balcony, whispered promises beneath alien skies. 1,000 moments of intimacy that felt both ancient and brand new. For an instant, there was no war outside, no complaint scroll, no counsel. Just the terrifying certainty that he belonged to this moment. To her dot, then the dome cracked. A jagged fissure split across the glass, stars bleeding through. The alarms screamed. Officials shouted over the comms. Alara tore herself from him, eyes blazing. Gown whipping in the rush of failing pressure. They're breaching. The resonance in Rin's chest pulsed violently, warning, demanding, binding. He stumbled, torn between running and reaching for her again. Through the dome, the black ships opened their maws, releasing boarding craft like hunting birds, and in that instant, Rin realized something far worse than the attack itself. The bond inside him was no longer pulling him away from Alara. It was pulling him toward the oncoming void. The observation dome fractured in shards of light, pressure seals hissing as emergency fields stitched themselves over the wounds. Beyond, the intruder's boarding craft streaked closer, glowing with hungry intent. Rin staggered back from the crack, chest searing with that terrible resonance. The bomb wasn't just humming anymore, it was pulling, dragging him forward as if some invisible tether had lassoed his very core. He clutched his chest. It's pulling me. Alara gripped his arm, her strength surprising for her slender frame. It's not pulling you to them. It's pulling you to what comes next. That's not reassuring. It wasn't meant to be. The dome doors burst open. Accord guards rushed in, their armor glowing faint blue, weapons raised. Behind them, a member of the Arbitration Council, a tall, luminous being of crystalline skin, gestured sharply, "Secure the air," and her bond partner. The Arbiter commanded, voice echoing like struck glass. "Get them to the vault." "I'm not her bond partner," Rin shouted automatically. The Arbiter tilted its head. A flicker of amusement if crystal could amuse. "You kissed under oath of bond. The stars have witnessed. No complaint can unmake what has been sealed in resonance." Rin froze. His lips tingled, memory burning bright. That's not how complaints work. Alara's fingers tightened on his arm, her voice soft but unyielding. That's exactly how it works, Rin. The guards formed a protective ring, ushering them through glowing corridors as the ship shook under further bombardment. Alara moved with poise despite the chaos, silver gown trailing like comet dust. Rin stumbled beside her, caught between fury, disbelief, and the echo of that kiss. Why didn't you warn me a kiss could be a binding clause? He hissed. I did, she replied. No, you what? When her lips quirked. When I said do not let it be wasted in protest. That's not a legal disclaimer. Apparently, it was. They reached the arbitration vault, a vast chamber of living crystal that hummed with stored laws, every accord statute etched into the walls in flowing light. The arbiter followed them in, sealing the chamber with a low, resonant tone. The raiders will breach within minutes, it declared. You must decide now. File your appeal, Rinsolin, or embrace the bond and wield its defense, Rin blinked. Wait, wield? You mean this cosmic headache does something besides ruin my life? Alara turned to him, eyes luminous in the vault's glow. The bond is not just memory, Rin. It is power. 2 lives intertwined can shape the accord, alter its map, bend its laws. The arbiter lifted its crystalline hand. But only if both hearts consent. The weight of it crushed him, choice, responsibility. The stars themselves watching. He wanted to run. He wanted to wake up back in the marketplace, where a stupid DNA kiosk had mistaken him for a galactic groom. But the resonance inside him beat louder, stronger, like a second heart. He looked at Alara and saw not just her, but every fragment of memory the bond had shown him, her loneliness, her laughter. The promise of constellations they had yet to touch. His voice broke. What if this is all just wrong? A mistake we're dressing up as fate? Alara stepped closer. For once, her gaze was not regal or restrained. It was raw, human. Then let it be the most beautiful mistake the stars ever wrote. The vault shook violently. Cracks spiderwebbed across the crystal doors. The raiders were almost through. The arbiter's voice rang out, urgent. Time expires. Choose. Rin's breath came ragged. He could file the appeal, dissolve the bond, walk away back to a life of solitude and anonymity. Or he could trust Leap.Ela reach for his hand. Her fingers trembled this time, betraying fear beneath all her grace. Rin stared at their joined hands, at the cracks spreading in the vault, at the stars beyond the fractures. He inhaled, exhaled, and chose. The moment their hands clasped fully, the bond roared to life. The resonance became symphony. Light erupted from their joined palms, spiraling upward into the vault, igniting the crystal statutes like constellations catching fire. The raiders broke through just as the chamber blazed. Black-armored figures surged forward, then staggered, halted mid-stride, as if invisible chains bound them. The very map of the accord rewrote itself above them in blazing light. New lines etching across galaxies, shifting borders, redrawing fates, unfolded all possibilities. Futures unfurling like wings. His mind nearly shattered from the scope. And through it all, Alara's presence steadied him, her voice echoing inside his very core. Not a mistake. A map. The raiders howled, dissolved by the weight of rewritten law. The vault sealed anew, glowing with the ink of fresh constellations. Silence fell. Rin gasped, collapsing to one knee, the power ebbing back into stillness. Alara knelt beside him, her hand still in his, her gaze luminous and unreadable. You didn't tell me it would feel like rewriting the universe. Her lips curved faintly. Would you have believed me? He huffed, somewhere between a laugh and a sob. No, probably not, the arbiter bowed. Crystalline body refracting the newborn map now etched into reality. The bond has spoken. The stars have redrawn. No appeal remains, Rin groaned. So that's it? I'm officially married to cosmic destiny? Alara leaned in, her breath brushing his ear. No, Rinsolin, you're married to me. And before he could protest, she kissed him again, this time without alarms, without raiders, without hesitation. Just stars, later. When the ship drifted in calm starlight and the council declared the accord stronger than ever, Rin would find himself staring at the new map projected across the dome. Constellations twisted into fresh shapes, roots of light threading between them. One cluster, Newly drawn, bore his name. He muttered under his breath, "Guess I'm cartography now." Ilara's laughter rang like a promised dot, and in the hush that followed, Ren realized his complaint scroll had finally stopped glowing. It had been replaced by something far heavier, a future neither mistaken scan nor council law could undo. Asterisk, you've just traveled through tonight's cosmic journey. Chosen for the Celestial Groom by a mistaken DNA scan, he filed a complaint. She kissed him anyway. If the stars of this story kept you awake or set your imagination drifting, let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss the next adventure across time and space. Until then, keep dreaming among the stars.